pleasure to sit here right now and talk to you and share an online buddy of mine named Jared Zero. And yeah, that's his real last name. We'll get into that. But, you know, the people that I've interviewed, the stories that I've shared on this channel are people that I've known in the past, people who I knew had cool stories to share. This is going to be a first. It's going to be a first for me. I'm really just meeting Jared right now for the first time. And it's exciting because I have to say, you know, he came across my radar with a tweet that he sent out thanking the Celtics community on Twitter, which I follow almost devoutly here as a Celtics fan myself, lifelong. So I kind of know what he's talking about, and I know what it means to be a part of a community. So I want to welcome Jared Zero to our community. Jared, welcome aboard, man. Welcome to the Greater Than Good.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited for this opportunity to, you know, sit here and talk with you and kind of tell everybody a little bit about myself.
Yeah, and we'll definitely get into that. But let's start with your last name. I mean, here I thought this was just a handle, you know, one of those catchy Twitter handles that we all kind of, we want to be different sometimes, right, and differentiate ourselves from everybody else and maybe rise above and get noticed. But this is your real last name. So go into that. I mean, what is that? I mean, is it, you said it was Italian, right?
Yeah. So it's an Italian last name. My grandfather went to Italy and he traced the name back as far as he could. It's never been shortened. It's never been anything different. It's always been Zero. And I'm sure they pronounce it a little bit differently over there, like Zero or something like that.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it's been Zero for as long as I can remember. I remember being in middle school and like grade school, I was picked on relentlessly for it. And then once I got to high school, it became the coolest thing ever and everybody loved it. And a lot of people just call me Zero, a lot more of like my gaming buddies and stuff like that. But it's pretty cool, the transition, how it went from being the worst thing I got picked on ruthlessly for to something that now is like a cool nickname.
Actually, I mean, it is pretty cool. I know Zero as far as the dog and the dog Zero in Nightmare Before Christmas. I think the dog's name was Zero. That was cool.
I get that a lot.
I thought it was a Jason Tatum homage. You know, he's number 0.
Ironically, no, but that's actually the next basketball jersey I'm going to buy is a Tatum jersey because of that. The whole number 0 thing. But I get the dog from Nightmare Before Christmas a lot. I get Zero from Holes a lot. And for some of my nerds out there, Zero from Mega Man as well.
Ever get a 0.0 from Animal House?
Oh my God, that's an old school reference.
That's a deep cut, I know, and I'm a lot older than you are. I'm going to let you know that. I'm totally aging myself, but I love the drop on the Howard Stern show when they go 0.0. So
no, that was a good one. That's a new one.
As a Celtics fan and as somebody who really enjoys the community on Twitter, I mean, you're not just there. Obviously, it's fun to talk smack and to chime in and support other people as well. But you have a purpose on Twitter. I mean, you're trying to build a platform. So, you know, Jared is a writer for backsportspage.com, and he does cover Boston area sports. So he lives in the Boston area, and he's not just somebody that is a fanatic like a lot of us are, but you're really making inroads and trying to develop a platform and get into the business, so to speak, of journalism and covering your favorite sports teams. So talk to me a little bit about that. How'd you get into that?
Yeah, for sure. So I went to Salem State for journalism. And during my time at Salem State, you know, I always felt that, and maybe this is like me hyping myself up a little bit, but I always felt that I was kind of a step ahead during my classes. So I decided to go on Indeed and I started just looking for sports writing jobs anywhere I could find them. Back Sports Page came across my radar and I applied. I kind of threw my name into the hat, was like, hopefully they pick me. And shout out to Randy Zelia, by the way, the owner of Back Sports Page. He gave me a call on what was one of the hardest days of my life. My great grandmother had passed away. It was the day of her funeral. He had called me that night, maybe within 20 minutes of me getting home, and I damn near started crying. I profusely thanked him, and I've been with Back Sports Page for about 3 years now, three going on 4 years. Um, and it's been a wonderful experience. Randy has been very supportive of me, helping me get opportunities. I've been on several press conferences with different professional teams. I actually got to talk to Jason Tatum once during one of his press conferences last season. Um, I've been to Gillette Stadium. I've interviewed Sony Michel while he was still with the Patriots. I've interviewed Aaron Donald with the LA Rams through this, DeAndre Ayton and Devin Booker. Those are just some of the names that I've had the pleasure of talking with, whether it was through a Zoom call like this or sitting in Tom Brady's press conference after he won his 7th Super Bowl ring. So,
Wow. That's
yeah,
pretty
so I've gotten a
amazing.
lot of cool experiences from this. And when I was little, I always loved writing, and I come from a big sports family. Everyone was always into sports when I was growing up, so I kind of just decided to put my two passions together, writing and sports, and that's how I decided and landed on sports writing.
Good for
Um,
you, man. And I'm
yeah,
seeing a lot of parallels here, and it's almost eerily similar to the way I started because yeah, my passions were sports and definitely writing. I was kind of a closet poet growing up. And, I remember the days where I'd write these little stories for my mom and kind of kept that from my 4 brothers because they would totally just, obliterate me. But, you know, having heard your story and kind of like that origin, it does remind me of high school football, stringing, getting paid $30 a game to go to a game and cover it for the paper, and then kind of graduating from there and working for the paper a lot more and covering a beat, and then just progressing from there and just getting your name out there and developing what we used to call a clip file.
right.
And for you now, it's all about that digital clip file, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I've got my mom still has the old newspaper clippings, but you know, following that passion, then you've been doing this for about 3 or 4 years. So how have you been able to leverage what you've done so far in this experience into kind of like that next step? Because we're always looking for that next step of growth and development.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's really where Twitter comes into play, right? So for the first few years of me being with Back Sports Page, I was never anything big on Twitter. I think at the most I had 150 followers. And what's funny is to backtrack it a little bit. If 2 years ago somebody asked me what my favorite sport is, I probably would have said football. And then last year and a half ago, somebody asked me that, and without missing a beat, I switched it up and it's basketball. And ever since then, I've been like, that's where my focus is on basketball. And so this year it was a little bit different. I've gone through some major struggles in the past couple of years. And like I said earlier, shouting out Randy, him, Bill Ingram, who's the editor for Back Sports Page, they have been so amazing in supporting me in some of the things I've gone through. There was at one point I moved 3 or 4 times in about 6-month period. It was rough for a little while, and I wasn't able to write as much. I wasn't able to do as much for the site, but even outside of that, they'd call me, check in on me, make sure I was doing okay. And due to that, and allowing me to get through what I was dealing with, when the opportunity came that I was finally in a stable environment and I was able to be in a place where I could write and I could dedicate myself to the website, they welcomed me back with open arms, and they really made it easy for me to get back into it. And I decided at that point, which this was back right around the start of the playoffs, like right around April is when this all kind of came back into play. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to market myself. I'm going to try to put myself out there, grow my Twitter following. I want to do as much as I can so that when I'm sharing my articles from Back Sports Page, it's not just 100 people seeing it. It's 1,000, it's 2,000, whoever is seeing it. And what's crazy is the playoffs started. We swept the Brooklyn Nets, and I really didn't
Revenge.
think I didn't think anything of it. I would just post my stuff and I still had like no followers. And then we start playing the Milwaukee Bucks, and all of a sudden my Twitter started going crazy. I went from it almost feels like overnight. I went from 150 followers to over 1,300.
Right on.
And yeah, so um, and honestly, it's thanks to Randy and Bill for allowing me to keep, to keep up and allowing me to stay within that family that Back Sports Page is, because I don't see these guys as colleagues or as coworkers, right? I see these guys as my brothers and sisters that I'm writing with, and Randy is like that big brother that I'm an only child, so he's like that big brother I never had.
Right
Um,
on. Yeah, and I
yeah,
totally get that, man. I mean, you know, it's like you go to battle. I remember
right.
having to cover like major events, and it's not just me covering it, but there's a team of us going out there, and everybody's got a different angle
Right.
or storyline that we're going to focus on for this complete coverage, right? But we push each other, we make each other better. And it's funny because sports for me has always been the ultimate um, reality television. I mean, because it's so unscripted, you don't know what's going to happen. And it's not just the athletes, but you're an example that it's the people behind the scenes too that are also sharing the stories. I mean, part of my motivation for this channel is to share stories because everybody's got one, especially you. And so when you say I went from 150 to like 1,300, that doesn't surprise me, because when you start dealing with people who are passionate about a common thread, in this case, the Celtics, right? We want to get our hands on as much content as possible. We want to get that story. And I think in your case, a couple of things happened. It was that electricity that fans were clamoring for, that content that helped you. But it's also, I think, your honesty and your candor, because over the last 3 or 4 years, I think you've been able to develop a voice, right? I mean, and it's different from everybody else's. So talk to me a little bit about that, because on this channel, that's something that I definitely want to talk a lot more about with other fellow writers, is the voice that we have to develop in doing our jobs.
Yeah, and that's it's funny that you mentioned that, because if you were to ask me that, like I said, even a year ago, I wouldn't know what my voice is because I was writing every which way. But I think the voice that I found in and of myself isn't so much like a game recap style writing or anything like that. I just love writing what I feel is right in the moment. And usually
Mhm.
that's stuff like one of the articles I wrote that got a lot of traction was actually about Marcus Smart and how I personally think he's irreplaceable in Boston. I don't think we'll ever find another player like Marcus Smart. I think he's a Celtic for life. And I wrote that article because I wanted to, and it absolutely went nuts. I posted it twice or three times on Twitter, and each time it got like 50 retweets, 300 likes, and it just became one of the most popular articles I've ever written. And I think the way that I've used my voice as a sports writer, and I guess now as a personality on Celtics Twitter, is just I try to maintain that level headedness. I try to maintain that positivity about the team, right? You see so much, oh, we need to break up the Jays, or we need to trade Marcus, or we need to fire Ime. And I hear all this stuff, and in my head, I'm like, I don't think we just watched the same season of basketball that you're talking about and what I'm talking about. So when I
Right.
see stuff like that, I kind of just do my best not to. I use that as kind of my driving force to go against that status quo, right?
Yeah.
Um, and that's kind of, I think, where a lot of people that follow me agree with me, right? We don't want to trade Jaylen Brown. We don't want to trade Marcus Smart. So when I'm able to put that stuff out there, um, and I see people interacting it and sharing it and talking about it, that's what really makes me happy. So I think having a voice where it's not the facts about the game, it's not the numbers, but it's my opinion, and people agreeing with it, I think is where a lot of that's what feels really good for me is seeing that my opinion matters to people.
Is that a sort of validation?
I wouldn't, that's hard to say, right? Like, I don't know if that's a definitely a form of validation, but I think part of it is, I think the thing that makes me feel the most validated is when somebody reads my writing, whether it is a trade story or a feature or an opinion piece. I feel like the most validation I can get is when somebody reads my articles and they're like, that was a damn good read.
Awesome.
I think that's what validates me the most.
So, I mean, it's a slippery slope because we're only human. I mean,
Right.
I certainly remember writing opinionated columns. I graduated to that, and writing editorial stuff, some more opinionated things, pieces. And I do remember early on, because I was quite young when I started doing that. I at first had to get over the fact that I wasn't going to please everybody. That was a blow to me when somebody would write and say, dude, that was shit, or they didn't agree with what I was saying, or they offered an opinion that was just out of left field. Obviously making people happy makes us feel good, but then I guess our job here is to look, this is what happened, and this is what I feel needs to happen, and you're writing in your own voice and giving your own opinions on stuff. I think we have to be careful not to get too high with the good compliments and too low with the bad compliments, or they're not compliments, but with the bad, right? So we got to take the high. We kind of have to stay middle. You know what I mean? We have to kind of stay middle. We can't get too high and we can't get too low. And then we have to kind of move on, because, when you got that one particular story and it had a lot of traction on Marcus Smart, did you find yourself kind of chasing the dragon with your next article? I mean, were you expecting traction to follow, or did it happen?
So that's actually a great question. So I have never once posted an article that had great success and then another one immediately follow it. Because in journalism, right, and for Back Sports Page, I actually help kind of guide the basketball writers, just because I'm a veteran with the site. We brought in a bunch of new guys and they've been doing fantastic. And one of the things I told them is, I was like, you're going to write an article you think is absolutely incredible. It's going to get like 10 clicks. Nobody's going to care about it. Then you're going to write that one game recap that absolutely blows up. I'm like, so don't ever expect those amazing stories that you write to get all the attention. I was like, but if you're passionate and you feel incredible about that story, then I want you to publish it. I want you to put that out there, even if it only gets 10 clicks.
Right.
But to answer your question, yes, as a matter of fact, it did. So I wrote the Marcus Smart piece before the Celtics beat the Miami Heat in the Eastern Conference Finals. And after they beat the Miami Heat in the Eastern Conference Finals, I wrote an article on how the Celtics completed their revenge tour, getting revenge on the Milwaukee Bucks, the Miami Heat, the Brooklyn Nets.
Read that, yeah.
And
bring on Golden State next.
Right. And that was the title, Revenge Tour Complete, Golden State Next, or whatever I titled it. And it got so much attention that Al Horford's sister, Anna Horford, actually liked it.
She's a firecracker.
She's awesome. And the fact that she went and liked my article with, again, hundreds more people clicking on it, sharing it, has been amazing. And, I've even shared it with some other Celtics writers like John Corrales. And, at some point in the near future, him and I are supposed to be meeting over Zoom, just to give me some advice on my writing and kind of advice about being in this industry, which I'm very much looking forward to. I've been following him for a long time.
Cool.
And, it's just, and a lot of it goes back to that growth I had on Twitter and, Celtics Nation on Twitter as a whole. I mean, like I said before, I've never really had anything get more than 10 likes on Twitter. And now my stuff's averaging 50, 60, 70 likes. I'll tweet the most random stuff and it has 150 likes by the end of the day. And I'm like, all right, so this is kind of what it feels like on like a lower end scale.
But it's a scale, and
Right.
it can be scaled. I think the best piece of advice somebody gave me, an editor gave me once a long time ago, was, kid, you could be front page one day and lining a birdcage the next.
Right.
I mean, it's like you're only as good as your last story. It's kind of a sports analogy. I mean, he was a sports editor, but he did say that you're only as good as your last one. So go out and make each one count and do the best you can. And then whatever happens after that, hey, there's going to be another one tomorrow.
Yep.
So it's I think it's always been kind of something that I've remembered. You're essentially saying the same thing, and that's good that you've got these young writers, this stable of younger writers that you're guiding, because that in itself is validation, in the sense that here you are 3 or 4 years into Back Sports Page, and they're trusting you to do this. So pivoting to the community, to the Celtics community on Twitter, you said something and you tweeted it out, and it did get my attention, absolutely, because you were talking about, and you alluded to it earlier, low points in your life. And it was this community, this Celtics community, that you were, again, being honest and being very transparent, just being you, thanking that community for lifting you up. And I remember I wrote to you, I sent you a direct message, I slipped in your DMs.
Yeah.
And I said something along the lines of, it's not often the case where social media is actually, something good for somebody. It's usually the opposite. It's usually bringing other people down, especially on Twitter. Yeah. So talk to me a little about that.
Yeah. So I actually, I have a lot I could say about the Celtics community, or Celtics Nation, as we like to call it on Twitter. But yeah, I mean, over the last few months of where my account has grown to the point that it's at now, and I know I still have a long way to go. It's just everybody's been so welcoming. They've been so supportive. I can't tell you how many different people, whether they have 10,000 followers or 100 followers, have commented on my stuff, being extra supportive. Like, hey, if you need a talk, we're here. Or, messaging me like, hey, like, are you okay? And we all go through stuff. And, I think we're all guilty of it too. I try not to put my problems out there, right? But some days I just need to get that tweet out like, hey guys, I'm having a rough day, right? And I try not to do it often, but like I said, I think we're all guilty of it. I feel like everyone's done it at some point. And just the fact I have so much love and positivity coming from everybody saying, hey, like, are you good? Do you need anything? Whatever it is, really, kind of resonated with me. And it started from the first few hundred followers I had up till now. Everybody kind of welcomed me in with open arms, right? Whenever I would post something, a lot of the bigger accounts would retweet my stuff saying, hey, go follow him, go check out his stuff. And that's kind of how my account started to grow. And it just, the fact that everybody took me in and embraced me is saying, hey, like, he's a part of Celtics Twitter. Like, he is somebody that you should go and follow. And now, everybody posts like, hey, I'm new to NBA Twitter, who should I go follow? And I'm seeing my name getting thrown into that is pretty incredible. And like I said, it's just the support that I've received basically since day one, where I really tried to make a name for myself, is kind of where that love and that passion comes from. Right.
Yeah. I mean, that's incredible. I mean, and thanks for sharing that. I mean, but you're right. And I do think that, man, again, just not to be too corny, or not to sound too corny, right? But, with sports being the ultimate reality show, I mean, when we talk about reality, it's not always going to be that happy ending sometimes. I mean, I'm certainly understand what it's like to ride the wave and then fall and crash and burn and having to get back up again. We do that in our profession all the time. And having a supportive community is really important. So it doesn't surprise me. I mean, obviously I'm very biased as it comes to the Celtics fan base, me just being a huge fan all my life. But I think sports in general, when people are passionate about something, it's almost like we become really, we look out for each other. We have that commonality, we have that bond, and sports does that in a way that a lot of other aspects of our lives don't. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and to build off of that, um, you know, one of my best friends, I actually met him through Celtics Twitter. His name's John. He has a little like clover next to his name. I'm sure you've seen him on your feed
Probably.
if you follow, the Celtics. But what's funny is him and I met after Game 6 of the finals, and we've been best friends ever since. And it's kind of funny to think about how you meet somebody over Twitter and they become your best friend overnight. But going back to what I was talking about, where these guys welcomed me, people are very critical, right? Especially when you're talking about their favorite team, when you're writing about their favorite team, right?
Sure.
And people can be very unforgiving, fans especially. I know there are times when I'm sure I get very annoying. But when people are so critical, when they're so defensive of their team, and you're a new writer trying to get into that, or like break through into that barrier of being a part of that community, it's tough because you don't know how these people are going to react to your writing. You don't know how they're going to react to your opinions. And so to see everybody be so supportive of not only my writing and to enjoy the content that I'm putting out, but to also support my opinions and for a lot of it, agree with me. It felt basically like a second home online. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And to give you an example, I have a perfect example of it too. So I don't know if you remember when Jaylen Brown liked that tweet about being disrespected as a Celtic. I put out two tweets within 30 minutes of each other. And the first one basically was tagging Jaylen Brown, and it was like, hey, I know I can't speak for everybody, but 99% of Celtics fans love you. We love you in Boston. You are absolutely cherished here. And, I was like, don't let the 1% of people get to you, or something along those lines. 30 minutes later, I saw a bunch of posts about Jaylen Brown and how everybody was supporting him. And I posted again, and I was like, it's really nice to see that everybody's showing their love for Jaylen, because at the end of the day, these guys are human, right? They are just like you and I. They do have feelings. And for somebody who led us through the finals, it's kind of insulting that you guys all want to trade them. So I put those two tweets out there and I went to bed. Those tweets ended. The first one ended with 3,600 likes and over like 200 something retweets. And the other one ended with over 2,100 and about 150 retweets. And they went absolutely bananas. I don't know if he saw them or if Jaylen Brown ever saw them, but it's cool to think that he might have, right?
Absolutely. I mean, go figure. Something positive got traction on Twitter as opposed to something shocking, for the shock value, or something negative, you know what I mean? Where people could just kind of be divisive and argue over and all of that. And that's actually a really cool story. I mean, social media can be a double-edged sword. I mean, it's the necessary evil when we're trying to build a platform and we're trying to get our voices heard, because your Twitter description says, hey, just whoever wants to give me a chance, right? I mean, I'm just putting myself out there for whoever wants to give me a chance. I think that alone shows a lot of, not vulnerability, humility, that we don't see in sports writers. Because you mentioned this community, and I certainly remember these old school veteran sports writers and this community, whether they were electronic media, print, radio. I was just the new kid on the block, and I was trying to make my way and kind of squeeze in like the runt at the feed, right? And they don't often show that that vulnerability or that human side to them, or they don't like to show any kind of flaw. I mean, it's almost like they hide behind a byline. They're established, they've got a lot of credibility. They walk into a room and have a press pass, and they understand that they're going to be the first in line to get that interview, to get those answers. And you certainly know what that's like, but they don't often show us the side that you show. And I think that's what makes people, I guess that's why we're almost endeared to somebody like you, who's still telling the story. And it's like you're one of us. It's like one of our boys has access,
Right.
and he's going to give me the information that I know he's going to ask, because I know him. He's my guy, as opposed to some suit.
Right.
You know what I
and
mean?
that's kind of something I've always prided myself on. I mean, I have tattoos, I have piercings, I'm not your typical like wearing a suit type of person, right? Like I'm
But
not the type of guy.
you're covering athletes that have tattoos, piercings.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
And a lot of these guys are younger guys, right? 24, 25 years old. So who are they going to, in my opinion, right? Who do you think they're going to feel more comfortable talking to? Somebody
Definitely.
younger with the tattoos and piercings that they can relate to, or some older guy in a suit, right? And somebody said that to me once, and it kind of made me chuckle. And I know I don't fit the description, but I'm hoping, and to your point of my humility, is Back Sports Page was the first place to take a chance on me. And I'd like to think it's worked out really well for both of us. It's really helped me find my level of talent in writing for where I can be at currently. But it's also, I think, worked out for the site as well, because they don't have a ton of people from Boston being able to cover Boston sports. And that's starting to change now, which is nice, because I can hopefully pass some of my knowledge along to those guys. But overall, I think it's just been fantastic. And I would like to take the next step, right? Whether I can, even if I have to work for free and I join something like Celtics blog or Celtics wire.
As your agent, I strongly recommend that you retract that statement. I'll make sure that you don't. No, I'm just kidding. You don't work for free, man.
No, but no, that's the thing, right? Is like in journalism, sometimes you have to, right?
I get it.
I mean,
dude. I get it. Yeah.
Even if you just getting your foot in the door so you can interview those guys, it's, even if it's $10 an article, you don't care, because it's different in this field than I think it is in any other field, right? Because to me, if I'm on the sideline after a Celtics game talking to Robert Williams and his 5 blocks that he just had, it means a lot more to me than if I'm getting paid $15 an hour to do it. You know what I mean?
Perfectly. Yeah, I totally understand.
So,
I mean, you're the embodiment of what I used to be. I just remember the access, and still being a student at the same time, but being on that court and asking those questions. It was just surreal, but it was worth more than money. And I think I told you I would have probably delivered the damn paper if they asked me to. So where do you see yourself, I mean, after, when it's all said and done here, where is the next step for you in your mind? Where do you want to be?
So the next step for me is just getting access, right? I would love to be in those post-game press conferences. I would love to be, one of the guys talking to the players after the game, or even if I'm on a Zoom call with them, right? I think that's my next step. Wherever it comes from, is good enough, right? I want to just showcase not only to the people that follow me on Celtics Twitter, but I want to showcase to everybody, like, hey, this is what I'm capable of, right? Sure. I might not be the best writer in the world, but I know damn well that I'm pretty good. If not, I'm up there, right? Like, I think I'm really good. So I think you give me the tools that I need to succeed, I think I can deliver, right? So it's just a matter of getting that opportunity. And cool. Like I said, it could be Celtics blog, it could be Celtics wire, it could be for the Celtics themselves, it could be still with Back Sports Page, it could be with wherever. But I just know that as long as I am being given an opportunity, that I'm going to take advantage of it, and I'm going to succeed, because one day I do want to wake up and, do this full time, get a nice paycheck at the end of the month for this, or however they do it, right? Like that is obviously the ultimate goal, but the first step is getting my foot in the door.
Absolutely. I think you've more than done that. I think you are building your platform, you're building a lot of credibility. And I think that is starting to show. I think things are going to change in a really positive way for you. If you thought that they were changing in a positive way during the playoffs, buckle up, buddy. If you keep this up, things are going to be, more people are going to take notice. That's for sure. And of course, it's my hope that this little fledgling channel of mine will help you build that platform as well. I mean, I think more people need to know who you are and read your work. And of course, I'll link all your stuff in the description on this video. But last, and final question here, Jared, and how are you doing now?
Honestly, I think I'm doing pretty well. I did hit a bit of a rough patch the last, couple years, just with some of the stuff I've been through. However, I think the way I've been able to bounce back and kind of regain my footing, right? It's almost like I was running and I started to stumble, but instead of falling, I caught myself and I was able to get back on my own 2 feet. And I think, I'm still dealing with some stuff here and there that isn't ideal, but who isn't, right? I think we're all at that point. So overall, from where I was at a year ago, 2 years ago to now, I don't even think I would recognize the person from 2 years ago. So
right.
I'd like to think I'm doing pretty well.
Well, you sound confident and you sound honest, and just don't forget, I'm a DM away. You've got a lot of support along the way. Count me as one of those people that you can always just reach out to and bounce anything off of, any idea, advice, whatever. I mean, I've been through a lot myself as well, but you're no zero, Jared. That's for damn sure. You're no zero.
I very much appreciate that.
Yeah. And I want to really thank you for just taking a little time and sharing your story and your background. And I hope you get all the attention you deserve, man.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure. Honestly, it's been an honor to be on here. What's crazy, I've never really had anybody want to hear my story before. So it's been an experience and a very good one at that. So I appreciate the opportunity.
Awesome. Happy to hear it. All right. Jared, thanks so much. We appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you.
All righty.
Peace.